The one that just hit me like a brick is people who think that when they need to lose weight, they have to cut out fruit, or saying that because fruit has sugar in it, it's like not good for you. This actually kills me. Fruit is nature's candy. Like, it's part of a healthy diet. That drives me insane.
Hello and welcome into Suns Out Stangs Out, Radio Western's newest summer Western Mustang sports show. My name is Alex McComb and I am your host. This is episode number 9 of the show, and I'm joined by Western volleyball alum Aja Gyimah. Aja, it's been about 6 years since the pandemic era when we last spoke. Thanks for joining the show, by the way.
Yeah, thanks for having me. What a pleasant surprise.
So, Aja, take me back to Scarborough. What got you into volleyball in the first place?
Yeah, great question. I think, honestly, I was pretty tall growing up for like my age. And so my neighbors or like adults around me would always be like, oh, you should play basketball or volleyball, basketball or volleyball. And then my school didn't have a women's basketball team like for like young girls, so we ended up having a women's volleyball team, and so I tried out and I really liked it, and I just kind of took it and ran with it. It felt like it was the first thing that I was ever really that good at, and decided to pursue it. And so even like now, I just turned 30, I'm still playing volleyball like 3 or 4 times a week. I still use it as like my main vehicle to like meeting new people and finding community. So it's just been forever such a big part of my life.
And how did that lead to Western? How did you get to the Mustangs? What was the sales pitch that got you to join the Purple and White?
I used to talk about this with my teammates, and honestly, Western as a school, it kind of recruits itself because it's got a pretty great reputation academically. But for me, I was just set on going to Western because I wanted to study nutrition, and there were only a couple schools that actually had an accredited nutrition program that would take you from an undergrad to being a dietitian. So Western was one of my top choices for that reason. Volleyball was kind of an afterthought. I was thinking like, oh, I'll just show up at Western for the nutrition program and then try out and hopefully be a walk-on. It didn't end up turning out that way. I ended up getting into contact with Melissa Bartlett, who was my coach, and this was in grade 12, and I was able to sign before having to walk on as a varsity athlete, which is kind of nice.
How much did your diet change over the course of your Western career when you were studying nutrition and diet and trying to compete?
Yeah, I would say I'm going into university like most like 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds. We don't really know what is a good diet or what's going to help you be healthy, even if you're not an athlete. Like, just for daily life, it's really hard to know what you're supposed to be eating. We don't really learn about it that much in school. Now, as a dietitian, I've been lucky to be able to be in those rooms with young athletes and who are coming up through the club system and able to work on that education with them. But growing up wasn't really something that was talked about much. So when I got to university, I was starting from scratch. And this is what actually made me pay attention in class, in my nutrition classes, is to understand, okay, how is the nutrition that I'm learning in my classes, how is it actually going to make me a better athlete? So I was taking like sports nutrition courses. We also had like nutrition through the life cycle. So I was able to actually incorporate what I was learning into my diet, but in the most basic, cheapest way. So I was eating lots of oatmeal, canned beans, canned fish, things that I was able to meal prep. So it was kind of like a crash course in healthy eating. But the quality, like the taste wasn't that great, but at least I was getting the right nutrients.
Tell me about a story from your time on the team that you still remember or still gets talked about among your teammates today.
I think I mentioned this on a podcast previously, like a while ago. But when we were in third year, our coach planned a big Europe trip for us to go to, funnily enough, the Netherlands, Spain, and France, and like play against the club teams there. So we actually went to Barcelona and played against FC Barcelona's club volleyball team, which was a pretty cool experience. The trip was about 10 days. We played a lot of volleyball, but we still joke about when we got to the Netherlands, we went to this really tiny town for this like massive tournament, which we thought was going to be like the way club tournaments are run in North America, where it's like super high level, super serious. And that ended up not being that serious, but we had a lot of fun. The tournament definitely promoted that there would be accommodation and breakfast provided. The accommodation that was provided to us was us sleeping on blow-up mattresses in like an elementary school classroom. So all 20 of us were sleeping for like 3 or 4 nights on these blow-up mattresses, in all of us in one classroom. And then the next morning they gave us toast and sprinkles for breakfast. So that's something that we still talk about. It's just like, what a crazy experience, but it was so much fun to have that experience with my team. I think it was a great bonding experience, but it's still something that we joke about to this day, because never would we think that that would be what our experience would be like playing volleyball in the Netherlands. So different from what would occur in North America.
Take me back to a match you remember the most and what happened that day.
I think it would have to be in third year when we were in the OUA Cup Championship and we played against McMaster in the finals. We ended up going to a 5-setter. To me, this is a game that I still think about because I'm pretty sure we lost 15-13 or like something like that. And on top of that, we lost because I hit into the block on the last point. Obviously, that's not the reason why we lost, but I still remember it very, very vividly. And I think that year, third year in particular, I think that was 2016, 2017 was, wow, 10 years ago. It's so crazy. It was probably like the most important season for the Western women's volleyball team. I feel like it really put us on the map in the Canadian volleyball scene, because we ended up making it to nationals that year. There were 3 teams from Ontario that were in nationals that year, and I think that was a really great pivot season for us, even though we came second at the OUA championship. So yeah, in the end, it was, I feel like that started to get the younger generation looking at Western as an option, like a top volleyball option. It probably started well before that as well, but for me, I feel like that really made a difference, and it was a really good year for us, even though we didn't win OUA championships.
Was that the game, that McMaster game? Did you have like 21 kills in that game or something like that?
I think something like that. I would have to look that up. But it was a great game for all of us. And I do remember that it was a great game for me as well. But obviously I can't forget the fact that I hit into the block in the last point. But overall, I do think it was a pretty great game for myself and the team. And it makes me miss like playing high level volleyball a lot. And I think it's a memory that will live with me forever. Like, it was 10 years ago and I still remember it so clearly.
What are the moments, maybe not on the court, could be off, that really stand out most from your Western volleyball career looking back?
I think, to me, it was the community that was created through playing a sport. This has kind of been a through line throughout my entire life, is just how much volleyball or playing a sport in general, it's it's hard to explain, but it's almost like the gift that keeps on giving. You can always count on sports to provide community that can extend to things outside of just having friends. Like it's extended to networking opportunities. It's extending to great career opportunities. It's extended to volunteer opportunities. All of these fantastic things have come out of playing volleyball. And I think the Western community itself, like here we are, I would say, I don't even know how many years we overlap for, maybe 2 years.
I was 16 to 19 on the team.
Okay, then yeah, 2 years. And like you can just see how much of a community that Western varsity sports has provided. And it's something that you can always tap into. So this is one thing that I've been super grateful for from volleyball in general, but also Western specifically. I was quite active on campus, being involved in like the student athlete council. Most of my friends were athletes as well. And like to this day, I would say like I still am in contact with a number of people from Western. I graduated in 2018. That was 8 years ago, and it's still been such a big part of my life. So yeah, I would say the community aspect was the most important thing that came out of my experience at Western. And I feel like a lot of people would agree with that.
Speaking about the people that you still keep in touch with, who are the teammates who you're still close with? I know you're in a different part of the world right now, but who are you close with right now?
Yeah, I'm still close with Kat Siofis, and Katie McKenna, who are both still living in Toronto. Every time I go home, I try to see them. Actually, Katie's coming to visit me next weekend in Amsterdam, which is great. Can't wait to see her. She actually pivoted from volleyball to CrossFit and high rocks. And she kind of took on like a new sport, which has been really cool to see. It's incredible how much she's dedicated to that. And then also I'm still good friends with Kelsey Beltman, of course, who's been playing pro since she graduated in 2019. It's been really incredible watching her career. She's played in essentially the WNBA of women's volleyball. There's like a couple leagues that are really, really high level. Like, for example, Italy was the first league she played in when she graduated. Turkey as well. Like, these are huge, incredibly high level leagues. She's played against the best players in the world. And I'm like so proud to call her my friend still. We still keep in contact. She's going to be in Porto, Portugal, this year for her second year or season with this team, FC Porto. And I can't wait to visit her because Porto is really nice. So yeah, I'm still in contact with them. I would say those are the girls that I keep in touch with the most.
I think Katie was president of Mask maybe a couple of years before I was, from what I remember. And then I remember the last time I talked to Kelsey was around the same time I talked to you. I think I interviewed her for her story about her going pro at around that time, 2019 or 2020-ish. Yeah. Maybe it was before then. But yeah.
You should have Kelsey on the show next time.
Yeah. When did food and nutrition go from something you had to, keep up with as a young athlete to grow to the thing that you built a career around? Yeah,
I think as much as I loved being a varsity athlete and playing sports, I didn't really see that there was an opportunity in fourth year in particular. I was kind of falling out of love with the sport of volleyball, and I didn't feel like there was an opportunity for me to play pro, which in hindsight, I could have done it. But I didn't feel like I had the support to be able to know where to start to even get a contract. So because of that, I decided to just pivot and be like, you know what? I'm a dietitian. I know, or like I'm a nutrition student. I know that in order to continue this side of the career, I have to go do my master's in nutrition. So in fourth year, I decided to kind of divest from volleyball a little bit and focus on becoming a dietitian. So that's when I started my Instagram page, which was dedicated to food and nutrition. At the time, it was called Aja Gyimah. And then it grew into Complete Nutrition throughout my master's, which was my private practice for a couple of years. And so I knew at some point I would have to kind of retire from being an athlete and find a new identity. And so I felt like fourth year was the right time for me to make that transition. I know that's really a big struggle for a lot of athletes, but luckily I had something else to kind of tie my identity to, which helped make that transition a little bit easier.
Your master's practicum at Ryerson, or at TMU now, included working with Carleton's women's hockey team through peak performance in Ottawa. What did that experience teach you about the difference between nutrition science and actually getting an athlete to change what's on their plate?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I moved to your hometown for half a year to be able to do this. It was honestly a pretty big commitment. And in hindsight, I don't know how I even found the resources to make it work. But Peak Performance is a private practice that was founded by Beth Mansfield. She has a PhD in nutrition. She is, I'm not sure if she still is, but she's an adjunct professor at McGill, Ottawa, Carleton. She's just like the sports nutrition expert. And it was such a blessing to be able to work under her. I think she's like the smartest, most dedicated nutrition professional out there, in my opinion, that I've had the opportunity to work with. And it was such a great experience. So through this internship with her, Carleton was working with the hockey team was my main priority, but I also worked with Team Canada Ringette. I think I worked with the military as well a little bit. She has like incredible contracts that I would help and support with, especially in Ottawa. And so working with the Carleton women's hockey team was such a great experience to kind of feel that team sports aspect again, working with high level athletes who like care about what they're putting into their bodies. This completely flipped the switch for me. Before, I was only focused on how nutrition is going to impact me and my performance. And then I had to start focusing or thinking about how nutrition is impacting everybody else's performance, how much food and thinking about food takes up the brain for different athletes, and also taking into consideration like their whole general health picture, which looks so different from my own. And so it was a really interesting experience working with like 20 young women, all different body types, different diets, different goals, aspirations. Sorry, my Slack notifications are going off. And it was a really great experience putting that into practice. So what I was doing with them, I was putting on nutrition workshops for them. I was doing one-on-one sessions for them. And on top of that, I was like doing grocery shopping for them to basically provide all of their meals for training camp, games, tournaments. So it was a really unique experience, and I'm so grateful for it. And I think if people have the opportunity to do that or work on some team, even as a volunteer, if you're interested in, a nutrition career, this would be the best crash course to do it. I think I remember the first meal I got catered for them. There were like 6 girls on the team who either couldn't eat dairy, couldn't eat gluten, or couldn't eat both. And I accidentally ordered mashed potatoes, which had dairy in them, for some of the girls. They didn't eat it, but I was like, damn, this is my first meal and I've already made a mistake. But I didn't make that mistake again. So yeah, it was a great, great experience.
Was there a specific moment or moments as a player or afterward where you saw or recognized firsthand how nutrition affected performance, recovery, or even an athlete's relationship with their body?
100%. I mean, I think a lot of women athletes can relate to this, but I did not have a great relationship with my body in high school. And then come university, when you're training like 4 or 5 times a week, that flew out the window. And I was like, you know what? I just need to do what I just need to eat to like stay alive and be able to be the best athlete that I can be. So my relationship with food completely switched. It was kind of a roller coaster with regards to body image, but I would say that in third year, which I think was the year that I was most dedicated to volleyball, prioritized it the most, I had a specific game day regimen where I was loading up on the carbs, big bowl of oatmeal for breakfast, pasta for lunch before the game. And then after the game would make sure I was having carbs and protein to refuel. And I think because I was so dedicated and focused on everything, not just showing up at practice, but like working out, eating well, taking care of my body, stretching, all of those things, I think it really just showed in my athletic performance. So this is something that, I mean, I was just working with the Dermatac Volleyball Club in November or October of last year. And this is athletes from the age like 10-year-old athletes all the way up to 18-year-old athletes. And like, it's so apparent to me now, but I had to kind of learn it while I was growing up, how important nutrition is. It's basically the foundation for what you're able to do on the court. It's going to help support how well you can play in practice. It's going to help reduce the risk of illness and injury. And so that nutrition and sleep together, you really can't avoid paying attention to those things if you're really serious about playing your sport at the next level. So yeah, not much else to say there.
Take me back to the genesis of Compete Nutrition. What made you decide to start your own practice?
Yeah, I think in fourth year, when I decided to kind of divest from being an athlete a little bit, I was more focused on just, let me just post some nutrition and food stuff and see what happens on Instagram. And then during my master's, we had a course on professional development, and media training. So one of my professors, Sue Ma, who's a media dietitian in Toronto, she's been on like TV for years. And she's presented at conferences and stuff. She's incredibly accomplished. She was teaching our course on being a media dietitian, and kind of teaching us the basics of how to turn the content that we already know, or like the education that we already have, into information that people can easily digest. So from that point on, and also coupled with this professional development course, I was like, oh, why don't I just try to turn Compete Nutrition into something that I can use once I graduate to help me generate an income. So that's when I started really ramping up my Instagram presence. I even started a YouTube channel at some point. It was all basically for a school project, hoping that, maybe at the end something would come out of it. And then I graduated and I didn't have any jobs lined up, nothing. Mind you, this was like 3 months before COVID started. So in those 3 months, I was like, okay, let me just try to go ham on this Compete Nutrition thing. I already have a couple clients who are interested in the sports nutrition world. Like, let me just try to ramp this up. And then COVID hit and I was stuck inside. No, capitalism died. So there were no job prospects at all. So it was an opportunity for me to go headfirst into Compete Nutrition and kind of give athletes and also the general population something that they could continue to work on, even though we weren't able to be in the gym or be practicing or even have games because of COVID.
Eat to compete. Where did that philosophy come from, and who is it actually for?
Yeah. At first, because I was so focused on sports nutrition, like it's still a passion of mine. I'm still super interested in it, even though I'm not as invested in Compete Nutrition anymore as a business. I still read up on new sports nutrition research. I still follow sports nutrition or sports dietitians. So I'm still really invested in it. But before, I was like, I would love to be the dietitian for athletes, especially young athletes, like age 13 to 18. These kids need the most help. They're growing the most. They're really developing in physical, mental ways as well. And nutrition is really going to help support that. And so Eat to Compete came out of working with athletes. You know, if these athletes want to compete at the high level, they want to be elite athletes, they want to go on to compete for Team Canada, Team Ontario, play pro, whatever it is, you need to eat to compete. You can't just compete without focusing on what you're eating. Or coaches and parents, even though they have great intentions, could be steering these athletes in the wrong direction when it comes to food. And so I wanted to kind of be that voice for them that they could rely on to help them understand what they needed to do nutritionally to be able to reach that next level and compete at the next level. But then it started becoming a philosophy for everybody. If you want to be able to compete in life, you better start eating breakfast. So that's where that came from. And it grew from there.
You worked with everyone from elite athletes to corporate executives. What's the biggest misconception each group believed in when they came into a first session with you?
With athletes for sure, especially young athletes, I don't want to get canceled by Gatorade and Powerade, but a lot of young athletes think that they need to be drinking Gatorade and Powerade at every single training session and like every single game tournament. And that is definitely a lie. That's not necessary at all. That, and also Red Bull and energy drinks. Not that athletes think that they need to drink them, but they don't understand that there are really big negative repercussions, especially growing brains and growing bodies, when you are consuming Red Bull, Monster, like these types of energy drinks. And so those are the biggest learning hurdles that I had to work on with young athletes. Even with the volleyball club that I just worked with in October and November, we did a whole segment on energy drinks just because, and caffeine as well, just because there is an impact that it has on young athletes. And so not a lot of people know that. And then when it comes to working with, in the corporate world, because I was doing a lot of like lunch and learns with like engineering firms, Arc'teryx was one of my clients. Like, I think the biggest misconception on this side, these are still people who care about health and wellness outside of their jobs, which I think is admirable. The biggest misconception on that side is that carbs are bad and that keto diet is king. Now, I think this has changed in the last couple of years because now people know now that like you need fiber in your diet, and that's where you're going to get that from a lot of carbs. And vegetables as well. But so I think it's shifting. But when I first started doing corporate or working with corporate organizations, that was kind of the biggest myth that I had to bust for them, is that you need carbs. Everybody needs carbs. And it's super important for your brain, your muscles to have carbs. And so that was something that school didn't really prepare me for, if I'm being honest. Talk about the keto diet.
A crazy fact I heard a long time ago about my favorite NHL goalie of all time, Martin Brodeur, is that he used to drink a Sprite between every period. And I thought that he said that like Gatorade like upset his stomach too much and water wasn't enough. So he was like, I'll have a can of Sprite every period.
That is so funny. I mean, I could see how it works, high carbs, but you would think that the like bubbliness of it would impact your stomach. But I guess he's not, skating up and down. What is it called?
Not.
What's it called?
The ice?
Yeah. No, but what do you call the box?
The crease.
I guess. No, not the crease. Like the court. Like, what would you call that in hockey?
Rink?
Rink, yes, yeah. The word was escaping. I haven't used that word in 10 years since I haven't been living in Canada for the past 4 years. So we don't talk about hockey as much.
Yeah.
The word escaped me.
Yeah. You're one of the, I believe you were one of the founding members of the Canadian Black Registered Dietitians Association and edited their cookbook, Good Eats, Why did that project matter to you?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, as everybody knows, like in 2020 with the murder of George Floyd and the honestly explosion of Black Lives Matter, this group was founded, the Black Registered Dietitians Association. Even before 2020, there was always like a need for more Black dietitians in Canada, especially because there's so much research to show that people of color are actually at a disadvantage when it comes to health. Um, they're at high risk. Well, Black people in general are at higher risk for hypertension and diabetes as well. And so there was a need there before any of this happened. But, you know, with more people talking about Black Lives Matter and being at home because of COVID, there was more bandwidth for people to kind of rally around and for us dietitians to rally around. So I joined Zoe, who's the founder, in kind of helping get this group off the ground. And she still to this day has done like incredible work. And there are so many incredible dietitians in the association. You guys should totally check it out. They're active still on LinkedIn, I believe. Since I left Canada, I have not been a member of the group. However, we decided to create this cookbook because for so long, there have been negative connotations about food from different cultures and how it's not as healthy as like a salad and a grain bowl, like the California diet lifestyle. And so we created this book that was basically an amalgamation of a bunch of family recipes that are also have health benefits. And so it's from countries in the ABC, African, Black, and Caribbean diaspora. And all these recipes are like family recipes from the dietitians. I did not contribute a recipe to this because I didn't have a recipe that would be suitable for the cookbook. So that's why I decided to be the editor and compile the book together, which I believe is still available. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, it was a great project. I think it was a fun side project, and I think some of the dietitians used it in their practice with their clients as well. But I still think there is a strong need for dietitians from everywhere, all backgrounds, to be able to work with clients. It's kind of like a therapist or a doctor. Like you want to work with somebody who understands you. Not to say that people from other cultures can't understand you, but it does kind of make it a little bit easier when you're starting from ground zero and building that relationship with clients.
You've since moved into a senior strategic product manager role at HelloFresh in Amsterdam. How does the eat to compete mindset still show up in that very different, much larger scale kind of work?
Yeah, actually, I think we should backtrack a little bit to my role at in the US. So basically, the past 3.5 years, I've been living in New York, in Manhattan, and then I moved like 3 months ago to Amsterdam with the same company. So in New York, I was actually the product strategy lead for all of our health initiatives, which was incredible because I got to literally use everything that I've been working on as a dietitian in this role. So through this, we brought to life a high protein product, a GLP-1 product. So people who are using GLP-1s, they can count on HelloFresh to provide those meals that are not going to upset their stomach and is actually going to support your journey while using GLP-1s. We also had a high fiber concept, a dietitian concept. So there were just so many ways that I was able to draw on my nutrition knowledge to bring healthy food to the masses. I think we had like hundreds of thousands of people ordering HelloFresh every single week in the US. And it was so awesome that I was able to make an impact and, push healthier meals to them. We actually ended up increasing our share of menu to like 30% healthier meals, or maybe 40% healthier meals. So customers were really able to get what they came for. and it, trust that HelloFresh is going to provide them with a healthy meal. Actually, one other one that we provided was a low sodium meal, which was like my baby, because hypertension is so prevalent. It's kind of like a silent killer. And so being able to provide low sodium options to people really made me feel better from like a population health perspective and bringing healthier meals to folks.
And back in, I believe, 2024, you presented on RED-S, which I believe is relative energy deficit in sport, to some of Canada's top volleyball coaches at the VNL coaching symposium. For people who have never heard of that term, what is RED-S and why does it matter enough to build team policy around it?
Yeah, 100%. I think the research might be a little bit different now in the past 2 years, but at that time, well, actually, we can rewind a little bit further. It used to be called female athlete triad, which was mainly if people were not eating enough calories, they would see a issue with their bone density, which means more stress fractures, more broken bones. They'd see an issue with menstruation, which is kind of an indicator for people who menstruate in general for their health. They would skip periods, things like that. And then also energy deficiency in general and not being able to perform as well on the court. However, they realized eventually that it wasn't just females who were experiencing this. It was everybody. Anybody who was not consuming enough calories to support the amount of energy they needed to just live their life and also play sports at the same time, we're experiencing a whole bunch of symptoms: mental symptoms, physical symptoms, health symptoms, motivational symptoms that impacted not just playing their sport, but daily life in general. So the OVA thought it was important for me to kind of provide this information to coaches because there's an opportunity in every aspect of the athlete's life. There's kind of a circle of care. So you have obviously the doctor, physio, dietitians sometimes, but coaches and parents can also be part of that circle of care. So that's why I was brought in to speak with coaches about how they could make their team environment better equipped to kind of catch when athletes might be at risk of REDS, which is short for relative energy deficiency syndrome, and then also create some guidelines in place to prevent that as well. So it's like making sure that there's an opportunity for athletes to have snacks on the bench or like maybe during a really long training session. Also bringing in a dietitian at the beginning of the year to just assess which athletes are at higher risk and identify strategies with the coaches to make sure that their players are supported throughout the whole year, because REDS doesn't just impact your ability to play, it impacts essentially every organ in the body, which is kind of crazy. And it wasn't being talked about enough when I was playing sports. And so I think now it's being talked about a little bit more, especially at the higher levels, but there's still an opportunity in university and in club to mitigate that risk.
How does proper sports nutrition change or not, depending on an athlete's cultural background? What have you learned working with people who didn't grow up eating the way Canadian or American sports nutrition guidance is usually written for?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's the same for everybody, regardless of your background. All you know is what your parents have taught you and or your guardians have taught you and what your coaches tell you. And so regardless of your background, no, you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know that, like, even though your coach is saying, hey, you should have coffee in the morning, don't know that that's probably not the best thing to do, especially if you're like 13 years old. That's not the best thing to do. So there are definitely cultural differences across the board, but in general, like, for example, my mom was not an athlete growing up. She didn't know what was required for athletes to be eating. She had to do a lot of research on her own to put, decent meals on the table for my brother and I. But I would say across the board, there's just more education that needs to be done. And especially now with TikTok and Reels and Twitter and stuff, there's so much. Before there was a lot of wrong information out there, but it's even more so now. And so it's a little bit scary, honestly, to have to sift through all of it. Sometimes I see things about nutrition and I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't know this. And then I look it up and I realize it's fake. So, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there, regardless of your upbringing or cultural background. And so it's important to have, access to the resources, whether that's credible online resources that I can provide or a dietitian in general. So I think one thing that I always like to say to my the coaches that bring me on is like, this is really a fantastic option for your athletes. It's a great opportunity for them to learn more about nutrition from like a trusted source.
Speaking of misinformation, which seems to be the word of the 2020s decade, what myth or misinformation about nutrition gets you riled up the most?
Oh, there's so many. Oh my goodness. Oh. I think I would have to say.
You can say a few if you want to.
Okay, no. The one that just hit me like a brick is people who think that when they need to lose weight, they have to cut out fruit. Like, or saying that because fruit has sugar in it, it's like not good for you. This actually kills me. Fruit is nature's candy. Like, it's part of a healthy diet. That drives me insane. That's one that drives me insane. Or, the smoothies. I'm so anti-smoothie. Unless you're trying to gain weight, don't bring smoothies around me. Unless you're trying to gain weight or like don't want a meal replacement, I think smoothies are just such a waste of calories when you could be getting those nutrients from fruit instead. Sorry if you eat smoothies. You can see them.
The closest thing for smoothies for me would just be putting whey protein in water. I don't know if that counts as...
That's fine. I have no beef with that, honestly.
Okay. You've spoken about TikTok and the flood of nutrition content out there. What's changed about diet culture and nutrition misinformation between the first day of your undergrad and now in 2026?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I've seen things move in a good direction since I've started. Like, I want to say when I got into school, it was all about cutting out carbs and reducing carbs to lose weight and stuff. But now the messaging is more around how can we add more protein into these meals? How can we add more fiber into these meals? And I think that has been such a great shift, a positive shift, because it's not thinking about, okay, what do we need to cut out? What do we need to cut out? It's more about what can we add into this meal to get more nutrition bang for your buck, essentially, and improve the nutrient density. So I think that's a benefit. But then GLP-1s are coming into the picture, and I'm torn on this one. I think that they definitely provide a great solution for some folks, and then there are people who are, don't need it. And maybe because I was living in the US before, it was a lot more prevalent, but it was way too easy for people to access who did not need it. And I think there's a lot of risk with respect to side effects coming out that will also continue in the future. So that's another thing to think about in the future with respect to nutrition.
Getting towards the end here, what's a piece of advice you'd give a current Western student athlete trying to figure out how to eat, and then also one for a listener who's never played a competitive sport in their life?
Yeah. I think for athletes in general, like, there are sports nutrition courses that you could take. And when I was I feel like that made the biggest impact for me as an athlete, because I was just learning so much about how nutrition impacts how well I would play on the court. So That's number one. Number two, eat a lot of carbs. Don't skip breakfast. That's just baseline in general. Never skip breakfast if you're a varsity athlete. And then for the non-athletes out there, I would say get really interested in cooking and food, especially if you have the time. I think there's so much benefit. I mean, it's also for athletes as well, to get interested in food and cooking. There's so many cool recipes out there online that I think can get you invested in nutrition in a more fun and creative way. And the act of cooking is a little bit meditative. It's like reduces stress. And so university is a pretty stressful time. So I think to kind of help mitigate that, get into cooking, get into food, because it'll become such a big part of your life. It never goes away. Until you're 90 or 100, you're going to be thinking about food every single day, 3 times a day, at least.
At HelloFresh, what are you and your team working on these days, and what should we be paying attention to?
Nice. Well, if you're in Belgium, Netherlands, or Luxembourg, there is a campaign that we're doing in January, which is all about health. So I can't say exactly which concepts that we're launching on the menu, but we are bringing health back in a big way. HelloFresh is great for helping people get into a routine because it's something that you order every single week for like 3 or 4 meals a week. And we're bringing health to the forefront. And I think this is universal. I'm still in contact with those in the Canadian and US offices, and health in January is such a big thing for us. So if you guys are interested, check out HelloFresh. They always got some discounts going.
To finish off here, since Suns Out Stangs Out is a summer sports show, I want to ask what you've been up to this summer and what your plans are for the rest of August for both your work life and non-work activities you've got on your plate.
Well, because I just moved to a new city, I'm living in Amsterdam now. The volleyball is like the easiest way to make friends and meet people. So because it's been so nice out, like as I mentioned before, it's 33 degrees and sunny today. Like I've just been playing beach volleyball and grass volleyball as much as I can and getting outside. And Amsterdam is a city where being on a bike is like your main form of transportation. So I'm outside all the time. Like I'm about to go to the park this evening. And the sun sets at like 10 p.m. in the summer, which is kind of crazy. So just taking advantage of it. I'd say volleyball and being outside are what I do most of the time.
All right. Thanks so much, Aja, for being on the show today. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work in the near future.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
That's all for this episode of Suns Out Stangs Out. Big thanks to former Western volleyball player Aja Gyimah for stopping by. I'm Alex, telling you to keep the heat up and the hooves running. We'll catch you next time on Radio Western.